Untitled Podcast is a part of the Kansas Google Education Group Network and also the Mace Kansas Network. You can find more information about episodes and guests at www.untitledpc.net. Welcome to Untitled Podcast. My name is Travis True.
And I'm Carol Nelson.
Welcome, everyone, back to the Untitled Podcast. I'm Travis True.
And I'm Carol Nelson.
I want to welcome everybody back to a new school year and a new season of the podcast. We're going to start do this for 2 years in a row. We'll see how that goes. But this episode, since it's in August and it's the beginning of the year, we kind of want to give everybody some information about Google Classroom. They announced a ton of updates to a lot of Google tools this year, and we're going to get through to a lot of those updates in upcoming episodes. But we're going to focus this episode on Google Classroom because that's since with everybody starting, that's kind of what we're going to use. And so I'm going to have Carol start and share some of the updates that you may find as you're poking around in Classroom.
Yeah, so let's take a look. Eric Kurtz, site Control-Alt-Achieve. He is one of the gurus that I adore, adoring fan here. So we're going to take a look, and we're going to have all of these resources available for you as well. So we'll show you where those will be, just as a reminder. But on his site, we'll just kind of look at some of the things because he does a great job of really listing out some of those updates. And so looking at Classroom, and one thing we'd like to point out is as you look at these right here, it's identifying some Google versions. And so Education Plus there, we'll look at this next one, and it says Education Fundamentals. Those might then, in and of themselves, be new terms to you. So Education Plus, the plus, think more, and you're going to be paying something for more. So just watch those as we go through, that there is a difference, and these may not be available to everyone. It's based upon if your school is paying for the Education Plus or if you're using the Education Fundamentals of more fundamental and free. So for those of you that are paying more in the Plus, you get a roster import. So just be aware of those. Something for more of all of us is scheduling assignments to multiple classes. I know this was talked about. I think a lot of people were talking about this and being able to schedule it to multiple classes instead of having to reuse and go one step at a time. They listen, and I think that's one of the biggest things is you can give your feedback to Google, and they do listen and try to make improvements. And that's one of the things I've always been impressed with.
Yeah, so this update, I can remember when we first started using Google Classroom back in about 2014, 2015, and that was one of the first questions when they released scheduling about a year or so later after Classroom was originally released. That was like one of the very first questions I was getting asked was, we want to be able to schedule it to multiple classrooms. So now you can do it. So yeah, like Carol said, they do listen. So click that little question mark down in the corner of your Google Classroom and send them some feedback. And the more they get, the more that goes to the top of their list for them to add.
Yeah. And so this is one of those, we've heard a lot of people ask, and now here it is for you to use. So a great feature that's been added. Some classroom add-ons and bringing in some tools that you can use with that. Measuring student engagement, an activity, something very new that you can see under a new tab called activity.
And the add-ons update is really nice too, because it allows you to update, or sorry, not update, but add those tools that you're already using, and they have a list of those tools, and like Edpuzzle and some of those quizzing types of tools that already integrate with Google Classroom, and it just makes it a little bit more seamless, so that you can add those right into your classroom. But unfortunately, if your district doesn't pay for the Teaching and Learning or the Education Plus packages, you're not going to have access to those.
Just to keep learning going offline. We kind of sometimes forget about the option of, Google and the offline use. So here's a reminder about some of that. Then safer meet in the classroom experience. And that's in the fundamentals as well, where you have that quick, easy way to get into Meet.
Yeah, I really liked how they quickly integrated Meet with Classroom last year, especially with all the remote learning. And this just takes that up to one more level, where only the students who are listed in your roster can join. And so they can't share that link out with anybody else, which is really nice. And anybody, so if the kids are on the roster, they'll automatically get in. But if you've got a guest, like a guest speaker, you can share that link, but you have to let them in. So it's kind of like that waiting room type of thing, like Zoom has. But those kids that are in the class already skip the waiting room, and they get to be right in.
They've come a long way with Meet and Classroom, just both, but intertwined together especially.
Yeah, and there are several on this website. If you continue to scroll down, there are several updates for Google Meet, Google Sheets, Google Forms, and we'll try to get through a lot of those in an upcoming episodes. But they really did a lot of robust updates to Google Meet, and it's really pretty powerful. But a lot of it, if your district is still on the free Google Workspace plan, then you may not get all those updates. So that's just something to be aware of.
And that's really something fairly new, those paid versions and the changes. There's been changes that way recently that we just have to be a little bit more aware of this year.
Yeah, and so one of the things, like in the Teaching and Learning plan, that I would like to be able to utilize in my district is the originality reports, or the plagiarism checker tool, and that's only available if you purchase that other plan. So you really got to talk to your administration and your Google admin, and whoever gets to sign off on spending some money, because it's based on how many students you have in your either students or teachers. So it's based on the number of accounts that you have, I think, in your Google admin console. So but anyway, so those were announced over the summer, and that's a great resource. So we'll put that just in our show notes page. We want to remind everybody that we have on the website where you find this episode, we'll have a list of all the links and other resources that we mentioned. One of the things I wanted to make sure to show and kind of explain to people listening and maybe watching is kind of a couple of the back end things that Classroom does, or that your Google admin can do for you. So the first, we just finished up. We're starting in our second week of school, and um, I have gotten a lot of questions from teachers or emails about, hey, I'm in Google Classroom, but I don't have the plus sign to be able to make a class. How do I fix that? Well, the only person who can fix that is your Google admin, and so I'm going to show you how to do that and kind of explain what that is. And so let's see if I can how easy I can do that. So all right. So this is a Google. I'm logged into my Google admin. Carol and I, as trainers, have Google gives us our own domain, Google domain, just like we would at school, so we can kind of play around and test some things out, so we don't have to do it on um, the district account. I'll tell you a quick story. When we first got it started with our one-to-one, and I'm one of the Google admins. I accidentally checked a box and it disabled Chrome for the entire district for about 15 minutes until everybody's Chrome just went black and blank and quit working. And so until I, figured out, oh, it was actually me that did that. And so it was nice when I became a trainer. I got my own domain so I could screw stuff up on my own domain, and it's a lot easier to fix than on a domain for Topeka public schools. So it happens to the best of us. But what I wanted to show you is when you're admin. So if the situation is where you can't create a class, then you're signed in as a student, and that usually happens when at the beginning of when you first sign into Google Classroom, you're given the option whether you're a teacher or a student, and some people do it too quickly and choose student accidentally. It happens. Um,
And
so, but
I've done trainings too, or a bit of part of trainings where you think, am I a teacher or student in this situation? And you might have clicked student because you were in that student role at the moment too.
right, and so that's one of the things that when I do training, I make sure to tell the teachers, if this is your first time in here, click that you are a teacher. But then we'll get you in as a student in a class. It's a little bit confusing, but the very first time. But then there's also students that will log on for the first time, and they'll click the teacher option, and then they may be able to create classes too. So I'll show you how that issue gets resolved. So your Google admin, so you'll email your Google admin, tell them, hey, I can't create classes. So what your Google admin does is they go into Google admin on their dashboard, and they go into the apps section, and the Google workspace. Again, Google renamed Google Suite, Google for Education, into Google Workspace now. And so these are all the kind of the core apps for Google. And this is where you really control, or the Google admin can control a lot of the settings. But they click on Classroom, and what they want to do is click on Teacher Permissions. There is a Google group that is created automatically when your domain is created. And this group is where teachers have to be put into this group in order to create classes. Now, that automatically happens when you click I'm a teacher at the very first window when you sign into Google Classroom. If you skip that part, you're not part of this group. All your admin has to do is come into here to people, add members, and I could add Carol in here, and then she can create classes. So like for Topeka Public Schools, our group has 20, or not 20, about I don't know. The last I looked, it's like almost 4,000 accounts, but a lot of them are accounts that we haven't deleted, but they're still in the system, so they're still kind of considered. They're still considered to be teachers, but those accounts are suspended. So anyway, so there's a Classroom teachers group that when you do click that I'm a teacher option right at the beginning, you're automatically put into. The other setting is down here about who can create classes. And so your admin may have it locked down to where if they have it set to verified teachers only, that means that even if you click the I'm a teacher at the beginning, they have to still basically verify that it's you and allow you into that group. So you'd be on a list of pending members, and once you're allowed in, then you can create the class. The way we have it set up is we have all pending and verified teachers. So what I do like now at the beginning of school is a couple times a day, if I can remember, I'll go into the group and I'll look and see, okay, these are all teachers. I'll go ahead and put them in. But as they're waiting, they're pending, they can go ahead and create classes. And if a student gets in there, I can remove them. So they could have created a class as they were just sitting in that pending list. But once they get out, then they can't create the class anymore. Or you can choose anyone in the domain. So then it's anybody, students or teachers, anybody who gets into the group or that's part of the domain, that's part of your district, can join. So you've got verified teachers, which is kind of the real lockdown. You're not going to be able to create classes right away, to the pending, where you can create classes right away, but somebody still has to let you into that group, or anyone, which is basically just wide open. Anybody can, anybody can create. The other setting I wanted to kind of go over, which I get some questions about, is under the class settings. And this is something to talk to your Google admin about also, because what this does is this is specific for class membership, which means who do you let into your class, who can join your class, or which or will can you join outside classes outside of your domain. So like in my domain, when I do training, I go ahead and let anybody join a class that I create as part of the training. And so that's why I have any user. A lot of times this is locked down pretty solid, where users in your domain only can join classes within your district or in your domain. If you've got classes where maybe you teach or you have students from other districts come in, so like we have some parochial schools in town, and we do sometimes they work with other classrooms, we can whitelist their domain, so we can add their domain to a whitelist, and so they can come in. That basically means that anybody from this domain or this school is allowed to come in along with all of our students. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say whitelist just equals approved.
It does, yeah.
That way.
It means approved. So we're saying, okay, it's still locked down, but we're going to approve students and teachers from this school to join. And then as you come down, any G Suite user, it could be anybody in any domain, and then any user includes everybody, also includes a Gmail account. So so you could have a classroom set up for like parents to join, and they could join with a Google account. But the settings here affect all classrooms in your district, not just individually. Okay, and so the first part of these settings affect who can join your classes inside your domain, and then the second group is deals basically the other way. Can I join classes outside of my domain? So if you don't want students to join anybody else's classes, any other district or organization's Google Classroom, you would select classes in your domain only. You can whitelist those domains going out. So like Carroll's and McPherson, if I wanted to, work with a classroom there, I could whitelist their domain, and and the best thing to do is I whitelist it on my end, they whitelist mine on their end, and then I can join, or any G Suite class. Um, I can join. So it doesn't matter what domain it's on, I can join it. So that's how those are. I have these open, and a lot of it has to do with training, and it's just easier to have things open like that for training purposes. And then the other things is has to do with data access and rostering, and then graded exports. But the two I wanted to make sure to show you was the settings, was the group, so that you kind of understand what happens when you are getting in the classroom and then all of a sudden you can't create that class. Oops, what happened? That's what happens, and it's an easy fix. And then also kind of the permissions behind joining other classrooms, because we had that situation where we joined a school district about an hour east of about an hour east of us or so, and so we had to we whitelisted their domain so that they could join one of our Google Classrooms to do some partnering with our students. So it does happen, and that's an easy fix, and that's just something you got to talk to your Google admin about, and work with them on. So.
And it could be temporary too. If you needed it just for, this amount of time, you could have them whitelisted for a specific amount of time, and then it could be shifted back down. So it doesn't have to be, set that way forever either.
Yeah. And your admins may be a little hesitant sometimes to change that, because it does, checking one box and hitting save affects the entire district's Google Classroom. So, you'll just have to work with them. It doesn't have to be permanent. It can definitely be temporary. But okay, so I think that's all the info and updates that we wanted to share with you on our first episode back. Seems like we've been gone a long time, but not really.
And yet I feel really rusty with this.
I do too. We'll get better at it, I promise. But it's beginning of the year for all of us. We're scrambling, and I won't tell you how many times we had to reschedule to get this recording done. But so anyway, if you got any questions about Google Classroom or anything else like that, you can reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at Travis True on Twitter. Or you can email me. Our contact information will be on the website, so you can email or tweet at us. Carol, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm at Mrs. Carol Nelson, and I'll have my email there too in our show notes. And can we give them a little preview of what's coming too while we have them? We're going to have some guest speakers again this year, and we're excited to bring some new voices to the podcast, and I'm excited about the things to come.
Yeah, and if you have somebody that would be an excellent guest that's doing some awesome things in their school, in your district, or in their school, in your classroom, we want to talk to them. We want to share their story. That's kind of how we got started with. We just want to share stories and get stories out, and let everybody know all the awesome things that are happening around Kansas. And this year we're not going to limit it to Kansas. We're going to go out and see what other awesome things are out there beyond our state borders. So if you got suggestions or for guests or topics, let us know. We're really going to focus a lot on the updates that came out this summer. There were a lot of really, really, really cool updates, and also, continue to talk and share how you can use all this Google goodness in your classroom and integrate it into your lessons and make your life easier and make your students more engaged and have some fun with it. So please reach out, and we will see everybody next time. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.